Alright guys, so I'm gonna try and do a recording of kind of how I go about my digital process. First thing, I'm kind of going through a lot of different colors over on my swatches. I basically work in swatches. I'll kind of get some colors and then get a good swatch and go with it for a while. Once I get a good background color, then that's when I'll start actually setting in some lines. I don't like to do a really detailed sketch underneath because the sketch always ends up looking a lot better than the final product, which I'm sure a lot of you know about. And so when kind of learning about what I wanted to do more digitally, because I'm really line oriented traditionally in my sketchbook, I would get so frustrated with doing lines in Photoshop. So I decided instead to just kind of do the initial contour or the outline, and then I would kind of fill it in and do a lineless style. This was after a couple years in college of trying to figure out how to get my lines into Photoshop and make them look good, and it was just too frustrating, so I decided against it. But yeah, so you can see I kind of pick a couple of different colors I'm going with right now. Basic light, dark, medium, really bright color. So I really love working with that. Kind of just automatically draws the eye to certain areas. And yeah, so I don't really know how to exactly explain how I go about doing song sketches like this one, but I just kind of get an idea while I'm listening to the song. And this one is Hurts Like Teen Spirit. I think it's a mashup. Well, I know it's a mashup, but I don't know who did it. It's really fun to just kind of sit and listen to it for a while and then put it on repeat. And I don't know, there's no exact narrative behind this. It's just trying to figure out what fits with the song, which kind of is a very strange thing to say, but the colors that kind of fit and the vibe of the picture, I want to try and get it to fit. And so the Reaper, totally a part of it. So I was like, okay, a Reaper, he could be hanging out there. And I guess he could be hanging out with a bro who might be taking his bro's soul. That's about the extent of the narrative to me, but it can be something to anyone. It can be different to everyone. Yeah. I love to use I think my main tools are just brush and eraser and lasso tool. Carving stuff out, kind of putting down an initial shape and then getting the details out via carving it out with the eraser is just so fun. It's a way different way of thinking, and I use it in every picture. This was kind of interesting. I was trying to figure out exactly, I didn't really like the guy there, and so I was trying to do another, maybe the guy behind the Reaper. So I drew this shape, because I like to draw shapes and then trying to play off of them and think about them. But I did this one, and then I put the guy back, and it just made this really cool draw to him. And so you can tell, see, I clicked it a few times, and I just decided to keep it, because it was just a really fun, those shapes in the background just became really a lot more interesting to me than they were before, which is basically the key thing with my art is I want to try and make it more interesting to look at. I mean, that's what everyone does in their art. Yeah, this is kind of hard to just talk about this. I get so wrapped up in just watching myself figure out what I was doing. Yeah. Lasso tool, yeah, it's one of the main ones. I love, I do feel confident in where I put stuff down initially, but it is really fun to kind of test some things out, kind of move it around a bit, and that's just a joy of digital art, which you do get traditionally, but it's not as easy. And so I feel as if you have that convenience to be able to move stuff around and kind of redesign while you're going about it, then you might as well do it. It can help make your piece stronger, or it can even turn it into something else. Maybe it's just me being lazy though. I don't know. That could be a thing too. Um, yeah, I really like, sometimes it's really hard to get an initial shape to work. Like in that hand, I was super lucky with it because I was kind of thinking of my own hand and the fingers, and it just came out pretty good the first time. But man, hands especially, they will take forever sometimes, and I have to break them up into like teeny tiny shapes, and then I break them up into too many shapes, and it doesn't look right, and I have to do so much with it. Anyway, kind of doing some facial features on this guy because I had that one eye there initially, and I did like it, but it just wasn't really reading as well as I wanted it to. It was almost too simple in comparison to the skeleton, because the skeleton is really simple as well, and so it just it didn't pair well with it, in my opinion. So I decided to change that up, and kind of trying to figure out how to do a mouth with it too, to make the face a little more complicated, but without making it too distracting. So trying to find the right place to put the mouth and the nose, and trying to figure out the right shade, because that's the thing that I feel happens to me a lot, is I'll get the right shape, but it's definitely not the right shade, and it's just not the right, like, it sticks out too much. So a lot of times I'll tone down those things, and even like with my signature, and you'll see that later, I tone it down so that you can barely see it, but it's still there, and those little fun aspects are really enjoyable for me to do. This is another one of those, just like adding some of the finishing details, which is kind of funny because there's not a lot of detail in this piece, but I'm able to just kind of make it work that way. This was kind of playing around with, I had 4 colors, and so I decided, like, I really liked the 4 color, but the halo in the back, which is supposed to be your first read, was kind of getting lost. And so maybe trying to add a little lighter of a color, but also still that like really rich orange that I had before. Tried to work with them both, but it just, once again, when you have a really flat piece happening, like adding those details can really throw it off. And so I decided to just put like a little bit on one side, and it really worked out pretty well, I think. I enjoy it. It kind of gives that illusion of just having a little bit of a shadow and gradient, but mostly flat, which is what I really like in my art. Just a lot of moving this around. One of my favorite things to do. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.